We're here at the FT Banking Summit 2016, and I'm joined by Jes Staley, the Chief Executive of Barclays. Jes, welcome.
Patrick.
Thanks for joining us. Now, you're an American banker. You've been in charge of Barclays for just about a year now. It's very interesting to observe the ramifications of the whole Trump election victory in the US, what it means obviously for America, but more broadly, or more specifically, what it means for the banking industry and the regulatory sphere. What are your initial thoughts?
You know, I think the main takeaway that I have from the US elections is a little bit of a follow-on to what we saw happen in the UK with the Brexit vote, which is for most of my lifetime, the developed countries have believed that economic integration and globalization was a necessary condition for world peace and benefited everybody. Brexit, obviously, I think was the first move by a major nation to say, I'm not so sure the trade-off or the cost of free trade and globalization is worth it. And now we have the election of Trump in the United States, and a lot of his narrative as well, whether it's anti-immigration or abandoning the Pacific Trade Agreement, for instance, is a major reversal of policy by the largest economy of the world, and the implications for that down the road, I think, are pretty significant. The second, I think, impact that we think about from the banking side is we're coming out of perhaps the biggest economic experiment of our lifetimes, which is the monetary easing that you've seen from the four central banks. And this may mark a move by the Fed, basically, to end the era of monetary accommodation.
Particularly on that regulatory front, if we look past monetary policy, do you think that we're going to see an easing of rules like Dodd-Frank in the US, and also perhaps a retrenchment from the Basel rules, because the US has been a big driving force for those rules as well?
I don't think that's so. I mean, I don't think we'll see that retrenchment. I think the regulatory move to increase capital standards, to improve liquidity, I think have been embraced, and I think have made the financial system much safer. I also think that the G20 recognizes having coordination amongst bank regulators around the world is essential to have a global financial market, and we need a global financial market if the global economy is going to prosper. I also think that the Trump administration has other more pressing issues for them, whether it's Obamacare and the whole healthcare system in the United States, whether it is immigration, whether it is infrastructure spending. So if he's got a couple of main issues that he needs to focus on, I don't think redoing Dodd-Frank will be one of them.
Now, compared to the US election, we were just talking on stage, you talked about Brexit being relatively a footnote. It's a pretty big footnote though. For Barclays and for banks like yours, you probably need to think about having a new outpost in continental Europe as a way to operate around the EU. Have you made a decision yet on whether you'll go to Frankfurt, whether you'll go to Dublin, what it's going to look like post-Brexit?
Well, obviously, the Brexit vote is monumental and will have enormous implications for the UK and for the European Union. And I also think following the US election, now what happens with the elections in Europe is something I'm sure all of us will be paying a lot of attention to. What the ultimate outcome of Brexit is for the banking industry is way too early to try to predict. As I said before, I do think that that London is a very important financial center for Europe. Europe gathers a lot of capital through London. As I mentioned, Barclays is the largest underwriter of European sovereign debt. That's an advantage for the European sovereigns. We'll clearly look at what options we need to consider given the uncertainty of Brexit, but it's way too early to make any decisions. And our hope and our desire is to remain firmly entrenched in London. We are a British bank. We want to be an anchor financial institution in this country, and that's what our end game objective is.
Jes Staley, Chief Executive of Barclays, thank you very much.
Thanks.